Hi. Good morning, everybody. I call the meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning. Thanks again for coming, everybody. Appreciate it. Karen, would you please call the roll? Here.
Here.
Here. Item number 4 is the December 28th special meeting agenda, which you have in front of you. Any questions or comments?
I move we accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
We have motion and support to accept the agenda as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed, the same. What does that mean? Hey, time to get to class. Motion carries 7-0. Item 5, in front of you, you have the minutes from the special meeting that we held on December 20th, 2012. Everybody have a chance to take a look at those.
Move we accept the minutes as presented.
Support.
We have motion and support to accept the minutes from December 20th as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries 7-0. Item 6, communications or expressions from the public. If there's anybody here that would care to address the board, stick your hand up in the air and be recognized, and we can go forward. Anybody? Okay, going once, going twice. So, item number 7, personnel. So, the reason that we're all here, right? Following the resignation of our superintendent on the 20th, was able to have some follow-up conversations relative to our interim position. I think the board has kind of thought through the process a little bit, and that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. But I think the intent of the board right now is to look to put somebody in place for an interim position so that we can really go forward and make sure that we conduct a good, thorough, and exhaustive search for the best candidate to fill the position permanently. To kind of coincide with school years and things like that, and when good candidates, may be out there looking. So I went ahead and had some conversation with the RSD, and recommendation from Cheryl Kressler. One of the resumes and information that you have in front of you is the resume of Dave Marsden. Dave was a most recently retired superintendent from West Branch. He had pretty interesting experience. He's got some time in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and had also taken over an interim position similar to what we're looking for here, under different circumstances in Woodmore Prescott. I had an opportunity to have coffee with Dave Saturday, I think. Had a real good chat with him. He seemed very interested in helping us out if that was the direction that we would look to go. So you guys all have his information there. Also, kind of another piece of information. I have in front of you a resume from Angela Irwin. Angie actually grabbed me on the way out of church Christmas Eve and asked about the interim position. I had a quick conversation with her 2 nights ago and asked her to send me a letter of interest and her resume for the board to take a look at. So that's what you have in front of you. Fairly brief conversation, with Angie, but she did indicate some interest if that's something that we wanted to take a look at. Also did have an opportunity to have some follow-up conversation. I think we were all looking at, potentially talking to some folks that were previously employed here at the district, right? So I did have follow-up conversation with both Joanne Cashin and Barb Woodruff. And while they both expressed interest in helping us if we wanted them to do that, given the circumstances and things like that, they both felt, in their opinion, right, you know, that it maybe benefit us better to take a look at somebody that had not been part of the school system. You know, I made it clear to both of those individuals that through the course of the investigation and all of those things that, you know, the board would have no reason to believe or, you know, any type of inclination that they, you know, were part of any potentially nefarious things going on. So, you know, they both appreciated that. But so to sum that up, that's why you don't have a letter in front of you for either one of those individuals. You know, again, they had indicated that they would be willing to help and consult if there were things that, you know, we would need from them. And I actually have pinged a couple questions off of Barbara, but really weren't super interested in the interim position, I guess. I shouldn't say that. I don't want anybody to think that they better be sitting in your chair, you're getting tardy, right? Don't want anybody to think that they weren't really willing to help and, you know, able to, you know, from that, I think they both be good candidates. So I guess kind of what I'd like to do today, you know, is just chat a little bit about everybody's thoughts about, you know, the interim position, and then, you know, how we move forward with filling that full-time position. Because I think everybody's got some good thoughts and comments. So I guess with that and the information you have before you, I just kind of like to open it up a little bit and hear some discussion. So, Mr. Fry.
And, you know, my first question, of course, is Ron Morley. Because, you know, he has had superintendent experience at the RESD, assistant superintendent there. And he's also familiar with what we have here, and I think we'll be able to hit the ground running. And so I want to make sure that that name is still considered.
Okay. And I did have a conversation with Ron also. You know, he did indicate that he would be willing to help if, you know, we wanted to have that. I think, you know, Ron, you know, would be a good potential candidate. I do know that, you know, through some individual discussions I'd had with board members, you know, while he would be potentially a good candidate, maybe somebody to consider. But, you know, again, thoughts for a conversation here today.
I'm not interested in considering him.
Okay.
I think, you know, just to catch everyone else up, as I'm looking at this resume, Mr. Marson, 41 years of experience, including elementary principal, middle school principal, high school principal, assistant superintendent, and 14 years as a superintendent. That's somebody who can hit the ground running, and we don't need to get them caught up on anything. You know, he's been retired for 2 years, and out of that 2 years, he's did an intern job catching another school district up. I think we're fortunate to have somebody of his caliber that is willing and able to help us in the intern, and really don't need to go a lot farther than
I like the idea that he's from outside the district. That's all.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of had that thought that somebody that maybe doesn't have any touch, not that we want somebody that's out of touch, but, you know, somebody that has a fresh set of eyes on things, you know, might benefit us.
I'm really impressed with Angie's resume.
Yeah. I didn't realize that Angie did any of these things, to be honest with you. I mean, I knew she had some school experience, and when she spoke at graduation 2 years ago, was it? Her involvement with Central Michigan University and things like that, she briefly touched on, but yeah, very impressive.
And, you know, perhaps she would be a candidate, you know, or she'd like to be a candidate for the full-time position.
And I didn't really have that conversation with her, you know, at all. I just was speaking specifically with her relative to the interim position, so that's something definitely dependent on what we decide here today that we could, you know, certainly discuss. She, you know, Angie did indicate she is working at this time. Yeah, you know, and I did have that conversation with Dave that, you know, we would see this as being a 5-day-a-week commitment, and he was fine with that. Angie also indicated that she would make herself available and, you know, do what she could. We didn't talk a whole lot of schedule, but that would be my only potential concern with Angie, because I think, you know, somebody in the district and, you know, through conversation with Dave, he found it very beneficial in his past 41 years, spending time in buildings and, talking to folks and making sure that he's out there and, visible to people.
When can Mr. Marson start?
He's available as soon as we need him, yeah. Yeah, I included in the packet, and Karen, thanks for coming in on your vacation day to run copies. You guys all have this electronically, but there was a sample contract that Dave had utilized when he did the interim position at Little Prescott. I have had some conversation about that, and I think this is a fairly inclusive agreement. One thing to call to note is the compensation line that was based on like a 3-day week for Little Prescott, so that $350 per day. He and I had talked that he would be happy and very pleased to come to work for us between $300 and $325 per day. So I feel like he's not there for the paycheck. Well, that's something that we all have to do to work to get paid, but I think he's willing to work with us on that.
I have a question. Superintendent position is a required position by law.
Yep.
And is that a required position that's a 40-hour, full-time position? I mean, is that even something you can do 3 days a week? Or is it just something you can do 3 days a week on an interim basis? I mean, how would that even work?
I don't know how that works relative to calling up. It's like, I guess from my perspective, it'd be like calling a salary position out for hours. Right? I mean, I'm a salary guy and I don't get hours.
Right.
You have a job to do, and if it takes you 40 or if it takes you 80, you gotta get it done. This is a little different because it would be on a daily, a daily basis.
I think in long term, is that what you're?
Yeah, and I was thinking about, I guess I'm going back to the other candidate who already has a job. I mean, is that even something that can happen with the requirements of having a superintendent? I mean, I was just curious. I mean, I understand when Prescott did it,
There's, and just to give you guys a little bit of a background, their situation was a little different. And Dave, he told me it would be fine to share this with the board. Whittemore Prescott superintendent went through a situation where his wife came down very ill, very unexpectedly. So he had taken a leave of absence. He was able to still be in district a day or two if needed, consult Dave if he needed him. So he was available. We don't have the luxury of that availability, I don't think. So I think that was the reason for the 3-day. It wasn't because there wasn't enough work to keep him busy. It was because essentially, he was backing up the individual that was there. But
Also, I think that it's going to be necessary for the superintendent to get the interim superintendent to get a really good lay of the land. And you don't do that without spending time in the buildings. Basically, we want this interim superintendent's help, not only to see things that need improvement and improve them, but also to help us make a good decision for our next permanent superintendent. And in order to do that, you're going to have to be able to be here and spend a lot of time in the buildings, talking to people, getting to know the people, and basically just being able to have enough time to spot things that might need improvement.
Well, I think the biggest thing too, from a board perspective, I know we've had the conversation before about, a lot of personnel issues and things like that that we've been dealing with at board level lately. We haven't had the opportunity to really get back into the education and, the kind of higher level of things that the board, not that we're unhappy to do those jobs, but the things that the board should be doing. So to get somebody engaged that can really come to the plate and, take care of the day-to-day operations and make sure that we've got things, lined up. The other thing I want to touch on, I think, is just to be able to say it in public more than anything is, because I since last the 20th, right, you get all kinds of questions and people grab you in the grocery store and things like that. And some folks have said to me, hey, you've got some folks that couldn't you have somebody, one of the principals, come up and, fill the position? And I think we have all kind of thought through that in our head and have had the conversation, because we do have very strong building administrators, and we have had the conversation with those folks in months past, to keep things moving as they are. We really need those folks to stay where they're at. If we were to shake somebody from one position to the superintendency, now we've got another hole somewhere that we need to fill, and I don't think that benefits us very well at all. So I don't want any of our administrators to think that we are not considering them because we don't think they would do a great job. We need to keep those folks, I think anyway. I don't know everybody else has to say.
And you're talking just in the interim.
In the interim, yeah. Yeah, if somebody had, if somebody had the interest to apply, I think we would consider. I think it's safe to say though also as a board that we definitely want to take a look at outside candidates and do, again, a very extensive, complete and thorough search, which would require some time and posting, and, we would be conducting interviews and things like that, so.
And is Dave willing to help with that?
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
search?
He had actually helped.
Help us.
Yeah, he had helped with, when he left at West Branch, he was, an integral part of that search, and he would be, he would be willing to help us, of course, to get that position filled, because I think after kind of, getting things copacetic again, I mean, that would be that individual's number one charge, right, to, really put things together, get the resources pulled together so that we can do that search and, make sure it's thorough and complete, so, yes, to answer your question.
In Canada himself,
What's that?
he has no interest in the permanent position.
No, he is retired, his wife, he tells me, is maybe someday soon to be retired. He said he believed that when he sees it, but, yeah, he's not looking for any type of full-time engagement. But that said, we had kind of talked about, probably maybe looking at something to June timeframe, to be able to get somebody on board and get them in. He felt like a 6-month assignment was no issue, so he's available if we need him to take care of this position if we were to move forward.
The only thing I'd like to do, before we make the final decision is discuss communication with the board president of the past, the previous school where he was employed full-time, and the intern position that he held, the board president for Whittemore Prescott. How that transition went, and
I've got a message into Dick Batchelder.
okay.
I have not heard back from him, I'm assuming because of the holidays. There's a reason I haven't heard back from him, so I did put a phone call on him.
Goes without saying, that would be the usual background checks and everything.
Sure, yeah, the fingerprinting and all that would be done for sure.
I do like this contract. The board agrees to employ as its interim administrator on an at-will and temporary basis for the period that the regular superintendent,
Yeah, we would change.
no, I like that though, or such other time as the board in its sole discretion decides.
Mhm.
I like every numbered item on this contract. No expectations of continued employment, termination if the board determines it's necessary to terminate the agreement. Just do it by written notice. No benefits as far as no retirement, except for the insurance for errors and omissions and the reimbursement for mileage. I like that contract.
The mileage bill would be every day to and from.
No, it'd be,
Yeah, if we had to Yep, had to send her somewhere.
Yeah, just traveling for the district.
And that is the 55 cents a mile, is the national
55
party.
and a half right now, yes.
Yeah, 55.5. So, I think, through the conversations that I'm hearing, right, maybe we're kind of favoring Dave to be that interim position. Now, again, do have a call into Dick Beckfelder, and, we can certainly make our decision after I have an opportunity to talk to him. That will require another meeting, because we do have to appoint him in an open session meeting, to the position. So,
Well, could it be subject to, well, no, I guess we do have to discuss it in one meeting or two, if we have, after we had the,
yeah, I think if there's any open items from this meeting, then we really need to, I can go forward and follow up with, with Dick.
When is our next meeting? January?
Your regular meeting is the 14th.
We want to do it before then.
Because we had talked about trying to have somebody up and running, students and staff are back the second, the holiday, maybe we have a meeting on the second. And I think in the meeting that we had with the staff on Friday, what day was that, 21st? We told everybody that we would do our best to get somebody there the second, but we weren't gonna, prematurely pull the trigger, and everybody was, okay with that, It was a fairly productive, well responded to meeting, I think. Tammy and Lori were both there, and I think it went pretty well, so. We've got some work to do certainly, but, I think we're headed in the right direction, so. I guess,
I'd just like to make the comment that I really like Angie as a candidate, and I would like to, encourage her to apply. The holdup, for me would be the time, for interim, but I just want to make that comment. I do.
and I will certainly, I told both of these individuals that I would touch base with them after the meeting, just to kind of, whether it was a hire or just kind of status on what's going on, so, if you guys are okay with that, I can back out to those folks today and let them know. And let Dick know, or let Dave know that, we are checking references.
And he needs to be fingerprinted.
He probably already is,
well,
but we'll double
Let's-
check.
that needs to be on file with our.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a matter of that, just getting over the Karen. We would maintain that in personal funds, like communities. Okay?
Adam, excuse me, I apologize for
No.
being late,
Sure.
but, public comment. First of all, I'm Bob Evans, for people who don't know me. I'd like to put a plug in for Ron Morley, known Ron for 20, 25 years and more, through the school system, when he was here and board and otherwise. And I think you need somebody with a little bit of experience in this Beaverton system, if you have somebody with his qualifications, and I think he's isolated enough from the present problem that we'd have open eyes, and he's a known quantity. I mean, it's Dave and Angie, I don't know either one of them. And I'm assuming that you have a committee that's going to interview them, or
For the interim, potentially not. That's why we're having a meeting here today to discuss qualifications. For the full permanent position, certainly you're looking at the committee, right? That's as a past board member, that's really the one job that we get to do without the state or somebody telling us how we have to do it. So it's the employment of superintendents.
I would think you'd still want some type of recommendation from some of you that have sat down and talked to them, other than casual conversations that you've had. I wouldn't, again, and this is just my opinion, I wouldn't be that concerned with someone like Ron that we've known and we're familiar with. And I think for a short term basis, that would be something that that you really want to consider. And again, I guess, I always had good relations with them, especially when you work over the dual ISD, RASD, day school, and he's familiar with a lot of the teachers in the system. And I think you could probably get some things done, which I'm assuming you want to try and do along with the president. That's what you want to improve the school district. And I think you could, gives it a talk on.
Thanks very much, I appreciate your comments. The one thing I will, to kind of point to the conversation, right? I mean, you guys have placed a lot of trust in me in my conversations, with Dave. He sat at my kitchen table for an hour. I felt really comfortable with Dave. He comes highly recommended from the RASD. We'll see what Dick Batchelder has to say. Joanne Cashin had worked with him previously and had very high thoughts and reverence for him, so that, I'm putting a lot of trust in those individuals, but it's a good point, definitely. Time is of the essence, right? I mean, we don't want to do something prematurely, but also we don't want to wait too long, right? That's a kind of a catch-22, we gotta get something going, so.
And it is an interim position that we control.
Sure.
We control it completely. If that person isn't going to work out, that person can go the very next day. This board completely controls that position. And we're not bound by some of the items that we were bound by before. And I really, respect your opinion and whatnot. But as for me, sitting here on this board, I strongly do not want us to consider that one. That's just how I feel.
Or an internal candidate, I think is.
Right.
So, any other comments, questions?
It's okay for you to say. I'm just Christine Ehlers, those of you that don't know who I am. Two things that I have a question about. One is, I know that there has been some personal issues or concerns at the middle school level. And I was wondering what kind of connections he might have to personnel in that school. I'm concerned about that. And then also, if you think Angela Cohen might be a good candidate, don't you think this would be a good time to really test and see if she would be a good permanent candidate? Kind of on a temporary basis?
That's something that I did think of too. But my concern was, her job, that she's not going to leave to be the interim candidate.
Yeah. But then we can ask that question too. We're not taking any action here today, so we'll have some follow-up.
Yeah. I have a question. Is that because this person lives in West Branch and there's a personnel that live in West Branch? Okay.
And we can say the names, right? Jeff Budge and Mindy Jeffries both live in West Branch, and Dave, he had indicated that to me on Saturday. He said, touch base with, Jeff Budge, his kids went through my school, and, touch base with Mindy Jeffries.
I don't have a lot of, I don't really think that Jeff Budge is a strong administrator, so, and that would be my concern is how that's going to impact any. I know there's been personal issues at the middle school, and if anything's going to be done, it could be kind of a buddy system where something didn't happen at that level. I hope to see changes in the middle school. Did Jeff work for a day before?
I don't believe so.
I don't think he did.
No, he lives there, right? So his kids went through.
Okay, so he didn't work there one time before Dave was there?
I don't believe he was ever an employee. We can ask that question.
Okay. That was my understanding.
The way David made it sound was, if you want to check some internal references, ask Jeff, his kids went through my school, so.
Yeah, so it was that, anyway, so.
Yeah, he didn't make it sound like he was ever an employee.
Okay.
I can have those. I tried to tell our staff that I would not bug them over the holiday season, but I think they'd probably take a phone call from me, I guess, if I called them today. Because it is Christmas. Well, I want to say thanks to everybody